Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome to the DEX Show. I'm Tom McGraw, joined as ever by Tim Flower. Tim, we're talking personalization today. I got a question for you, sir. What would a truly tailored, Tim Flower stamped, personalized, white glove IT service look like? The IT of your dreams, if that isn't too much of a stretch of a concept, which for you, I know it won't be.
IT of my dreams. I spent so many years giving other people the IT of their dreams and never think about myself.
Answer.
But no, it's the picture of the kids on the wallpaper, the icons in the right place, and then kind of the boring stuff, making sure I got all the applications I want and the settings I want. But personalization. It's interesting. It's different for everybody, right? I don't know if I can pick a favorite.
There you go. There you go. I just want my laptop to be less dusty and to have less cracks on it. But this could tell you something about the way I treat my hardware. But we're going to get into personalization in a bit more detail. We've got a fantastic guest in Adam Harding. Adam is Chief Technologist for the digital workspace at Softcat. Adam, how are you? Welcome to the DEX Show. Just back from your travels, I believe.
Yes. No, I'm good. I'm really good. Thanks for having me on. I am ever so slightly jet lagged, which is my excuse for if my answers are poor or make no sense to a wider audience. But no, I'm good. I'm feeling ready to contribute wholeheartedly.
Excellent. Well, let's put that contribution on your shoulders, Adam, and ask you to frame our whole discussion today. Got a great topic, of course, but to what extent does personalization, in the most general sense, run, if you will, counter to the founding ethos of IT? Is that an accurate statement?
So, absolutely. Traditionally, IT organizations have looked to standardization to make it easy for themselves and for their users to get on with their day. And really what they were looking to do was move away from chaos management, which is if I do A, B, and C, perhaps X, Y, and Z will happen, to move towards standardization, which is if we do A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z will happen. That level of predictability, you can build businesses and you can build organizations on the shoulders of that type of stuff. But when you take it too far and you try and standardize everything from the floor to the ceiling, actually who is benefiting from the simplification you're trying to achieve? Simple example, I know lots of organizations, in fact I had this conversation the other day, organization had decided to standardize on iPhone. Perfectly reasonable, nothing wrong with an iPhone. When we asked them, how did you come to that decision? Well, we've got 3 guys on the help desk that run our mobile platform, and it's easier for them to get their heads around the iOS and Apple platform than have to do that plus Android. I said, well, that's fine. So what you've actually done is made life easier for 3 people, but you've got 1,000 users, so you've just made it really difficult for the 500 people that don't use iOS. So the focus of that standardization and simplification and their faces dropped when the penny dropped, really. And I think that's the kind of thing that we've got to look out for. So there was absolute. So to answer your question, does personalization go against the initial ethos of IT? I don't think it does, because I think actually this was all about achieving more with the time we have. I think that standardization plays a part of it, but as you get closer and closer to the individual user, you have to naturally become more personalized and more individual, or you actually start getting in their way. And they're the ones that offer the service to your customers, that teach your students, that care for your patients.
Well said. And of course, that founding era we were discussing there was a very different one. For one difference, workplace IT was, for most users, the cutting edge of their experience with technology, of course. And I mean, how has this been reversed over time, and what are the consequences of that reversal for those in charge today of provisioning technology in the workplace, Adam?
I think anybody who's listening to this podcast is going to be aware of consumerization. I appreciate people in my position, chief technologists and whatever, pretend to have crystal balls and see into the future, but the reality is there is a roadmap in front of us. What's landing in the consumer space, a lot of that translates into our internal IT. And I think when you look at the shift, the digital transformation that's happening at the moment, when you're looking at the consumer space, the customer-facing operations, a lot of that is about personalizing your customer experience. A lot of digital transformation is really focused in on, how do I make you feel special? How do I put the right adverts in front of you? How do I give you the right coupon at the right time? How do I give you the platform that you want to connect to our contact center with? It's about that. It's about greater personalization in our real lives. So it's only a matter of time before we again look inside our organizations and raise the bar. So I think that's really the consequence of digital transformation in the outside world, is going to lean on our chiefs and our IT support desks and everybody else to bring that inside our organizations and make sure that we too are benefiting from personalization internally. Because to your first statement, there was a time when work was where the leading cutting edge technology happened and took place. That is not the case, and I don't think there's anybody that's going to challenge me on that one.
No, it's so true. Adam, you said a lot of things that resonate. IT's gone through so many changes. My previous employer, where I was at for 20 years, standardization is difficult because you've got to give the same thing to everybody. You're either over-provisioning or under-provisioning, and you're trying to make every machine look as similar as possible. One of the biggest revolts that we had in IT was even standardizing on the smallest of things. We said, we need to get our employees more connected to the brand, so we're going to change the wallpaper to be our mascot and our logo. So we changed everybody's backgrounds, and there was a revolt. What did you do with the picture of my kids? Why is my background changed? Well, if you're looking at your kids, you're not doing work. Where are your applications? It was this big back and forth about a picture. So IT has changed a lot to really try and be more flexible with employees. But I'm curious if you see that change in IT as really kind of see why we're seeing the rise of employee experience as a key factor, even in talent acquisition and retention. How significant is the DEX concept, however you name it, in the workplace today? What are you seeing?
So I think the concept is hugely significant for the vast majority of organizations out there, because there is almost nobody that is immune to the, let's call it at least the great reconsideration, if not the great resignation at the moment. There is a shortfall of skills. There is a lot of people have had an opportunity during the pandemic and the time they were forced to work remotely to reconsider their work, their lifestyle. More than their work style, and I think that the digital employee experience now is more than important than ever, because people care about how they feel about doing their work, is the truth. Now, I think that there are several elements here. I think there is true employee experience, which includes things that are outside of IT's control, that are well-being and its pay packages and its benefits and all that type of stuff. But there is user experience that certainly forms a part inside the broader HR initiative, should we say, of employee experience, that really counts. Because these devices and these applications and these connections and these services are more now than ever the thing that connects you to your organization. If it wasn't for IT, people would feel incredibly disconnected, and it's our job to delete the distance between us, really. So I think that employee experience and user experience specifically, because it offers up marginal gains, because you're improving everything every day for everybody, and that results in those big productivity gains, I think that it is hugely important for businesses. I think it's hugely important for employees, and I think that now is the time, because we're at the big shake-up. Everybody's waiting for the ebb and flow of hybrid to settle down, so we find this pattern of our new working life.
I love that phrase, delete the distance. We've got to use that more often. One of as I kind of reflect on it, creating a standard and forcing that standard on employees, it absolutely creates that distance between the employee and IT. I've got to just accept what you gave me. It might not apply to me, but I don't have very much choice there. One of the solutions over many years that we found was, if the standard didn't work, for a group of employees, we just create a new standard. And now we've got 2 standards, and now we have 10 standards, and now we have 30 standards. You're almost forcing yourself into getting to personalization just through managing lots of standards. What we're talking about here, though, is we're now even going to the point where we're talking about one-on-one personalization. So now you've got 30,000 individual standards. Is one-to-one personalization really the viable alternative?
I think that we need to look at this from my position. I think we need to look to make progress rather than worry too much about finish lines, is the truth. I think that we've gone from overall organisation standardization to cherry picking, 4, 5, 6 generic personas that kind of represent everybody 70-80% of their day, but probably don't match them the other 20% of the day. I think that semi worked when we were broadly all in an office and usually in the same office and usually in the same seat, to be honest. As we started to work from home, as we've now become, because it's the third wave really, there was in the office, there was at home, and then there's this flip-flop hybrid piece where really you don't know where anybody's going to be at any given point in time. I think as you get into that realm, that's why we now need to go, well, that 20% that we didn't care about because we were 80% of the way there and they could put up with it, that's changed. Because thing one, we now care, 10 years ago, and this sounds awful saying it out loud, but 10 years ago, people really didn't care how employees felt about IT. It was just, are the lights green? Is the thing on? And is it performing as well as we paid for it to perform? If it is, then tough. That is not really the case. I mean, there are no absolutes in this world, as we have learnt, but it's now fairly rare, encouragingly rare, for me to come across an organisation that doesn't care what their employees feel about the services they're being provided. It's extremely rare, and that was not the case 10 years ago, maybe not even 5 years ago. So as we're now looking to get closer and closer to delivering what the individual requires to be brilliant, I think that you can't just keep on coming up with categories for personas. You've got to come up with different ways of understanding what people need to do their job, and probably reflect on the fact that a lot of the information we've captured, and the approach to doing this in the past has largely been historic. We've had a look at how people have been working up to the point we've ran this report, and we've then used maybe the feedback from their managers to second guess what it is that they actually need. It's been designed at a distance and with a historical view of the data. And if we want to get closer and closer to one-to-one personalization, doesn't really matter if we ever quite get there, but get closer, make progress, then we have to change that view completely. We have to start looking at things continuously. We have to start bringing together the input that the user themselves has. We need to gather the analytical data that the company has, and we need to do this continuously and in real time. And that's going to open up lots of opportunities for us. But I think there is a point, and I just want to, this is a slight aside, I think, but I think it's connected. I personally think that in the hybrid world, there's a big opportunity for us to address some of the accessibility challenges that people have had previously. There are plenty of people that, I think 1 in 7 people, I think, are in the world are considered disabled to some degree. It might be as small as colour blindness. It might be something far more significant. But there's lots of people that couldn't make it into the workplaces before because they had motor challenges. There was lots of people that have struggled to get into employment. Now we have an employment crisis, and we now have a much broader reach than we've ever had before. I think the ambition to get towards one-to-one personalization really supports the drive to bring those people back into the workforce, and I think it's win-win. So having that focus on the individual, making the conversations happen constantly, I think is really important, and I think it's something that should be done.
Where do you think this develops, say, in the next 5 years? And to be maybe even more specific, what might onboarding look like from this perspective in that period? How do you see that developing specifically?
The personas we use today are still too rudimentary and static. They're building blocks, but they are absolutely limited by inadequate inputs, and essentially basing predictability on past behavior. So we need to get better at using all of the digital signals that an individual generates on a daily basis to create a virtual reflection of their habits. Because once we have that, and once we're looking at that consistently, we can make, and we've got like a living, breathing representation of that individual, we can spot where changes at an individual level make sense for both them and the organization. So it could be something as simple as they have a device, it's set up to be refreshed 3 years in, but actually at 2 years in, their applications have been upgraded from version this to version that. They've gone from Office here to Office there. The I/O profiles changed, the memory demands have changed, and actually they're banging their head off the ceiling at 2 years in. And we can show, based on the statistics that we are collecting live and at that point in time, that we would be better off replacing their machine now because it's costing us more money and wasted time than letting them bleed out till the end for another year to the end of that 3-year contract. We end up with this kind of dynamic model. Now, that there is a great example of where making an individual change and hooking it into the rest of your system, your joiners, movers, levers system, using, integrating it with things like ServiceNow that are prolific in the industry, could make a real difference to someone's individual happiness, somebody's individual performance, and their individual contribution to the business.
Adam, you are passionate about this topic, and it's what makes it such a pleasure to talk to you and to listen to you. We're going to be hosting you on the DEX show, DEX Hub Mothership. I know we're going to have an article from you up there soon, so do check that link in the show notes if you want to hear or read more from Adam also. And just remains for me to say thank you so much for coming on the show, Adam.
Thanks for being here, Adam.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for the invite.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.